In May 2022, 60 Atlanta police officers and federal agents descended on a rented mansion in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods, and arrested a 30-year-old Grammy-winning songwriter on charges that could have put him in prison for the rest of his life. Prosecutors alleged that the record label he'd built from nothing, a label responsible for some of the most influential sounds in modern hip-hop, was actually the operating front for a violent street gang responsible for murders, armed robberies, and carjackings stretching back nearly a decade. What followed was the longest criminal trial in the history of the state of Georgia. 2.5 years, 10 months of jury selection alone, a judge removed from the case, a defense attorney arrested in open court, and a global audience watching a live stream of it all, day after day, for the better part of 2 years. The man at the center of it had already spent the previous decade rewriting the rules of what a rap song could sound like. His name is Jeffery Lamar Williams. Almost nobody calls him that. This is the story of Young Thug. He was born on August 16, 1991, in Atlanta, Georgia, the 10th of 11 children in a large, sprawling family. He grew up primarily in the Jonesboro South housing projects near Cleveland Avenue, in Atlanta's Sylvan Hills neighborhood, a stretch of the city that, remarkably, also produced Waka Flocka Flame and Ludacris, and where Williams lived just 4 doors down from a childhood friend named Quincy Williams, who would later become his frequent collaborator Pee Wee Longway. His childhood was defined early by instability and violence. Williams has said in interviews that he was already in the streets by the age of 8 or 9. School didn't provide much of a refuge. He was expelled in the 6th grade after breaking a teacher's arm, an incident serious enough to land him in juvenile detention for a stretch that, by some accounts, lasted around 4 years. He became a father himself at 17, the first of what would eventually become 6 children with several different partners, a responsibility that arrived in his life well before anything resembling career stability did. Music became his way out, though it didn't happen overnight. Williams made his first credited appearance in 2010 as a guest on a song by a lesser-known Atlanta rapper named True Royal. The following year, he began releasing the first volumes of a self-produced mixtape series called I Came From Nothing, a title that, in hindsight, reads less like a boast and more like a plain statement of fact. Those early tapes circulated locally through 2011 and 2012, slowly building him a reputation within Atlanta's notoriously competitive underground rap scene. The break that changed everything came from Gucci Mane, already one of the most influential figures in Atlanta trap music, who took notice of Williams's strange, elastic, almost unclassifiable vocal delivery, a style that stretched and warped words, slid between rapping and singing without warning, and sounded like almost nothing else on the radio at the time. In late 2012, Gucci signed him to his label, 1017 Brick Squad Records. Williams released his major mixtape debut under that partnership, 1017 Thug, in February 2013, and it was an immediate critical sensation within hip-hop circles, praised for its originality even before mainstream audiences had caught on. That same year, he also signed a management deal with Birdman's Rich Gang Collective and inked an early solo deal with APG worth $30,000. Modest money by industry standards, but real momentum for a kid who, by his own account, had come from literally nothing. In 2014, Young Thug signed to 300 Entertainment, the Atlantic distributed label co-founded by music executives Lyer Cohen and Kevin Liles, giving him major label muscle behind his growing catalog. His single Stoner, originally released the previous year, exploded in early 2014 after an official remix featuring Whale opened the floodgates for a wave of unauthorized freestyle remixes from other artists eager to jump on the sound. Stoner eventually went gold. Around the same period, his collaboration with T.I., About the Money, became a genuine mainstream hit, further establishing him as more than just an underground curiosity. By 2015, Young Thug had become one of the most talked about and polarizing new voices in hip-hop, loved by critics and fellow artists for his sheer inventiveness, and mocked by some traditionalists who found his slurred, melodic, occasionally indecipherable delivery to be the death of lyricism as they understood it. His 2015 project Barter 6 climbed to number 22 on the Billboard 200 and is now widely regarded, in retrospect, as one of the most influential rap records of the decade, a genuine turning point in how an entire generation of rappers would approach melody, cadence, and vocal texture. Producers and rappers who came up in his wake, from Playboi Carti to Lil Uzi Vert to a long list of SoundCloud-era artists, have cited his early work as a direct blueprint. Alongside the sound, there was the image, androgynous, boundary-pushing fashion choices that regularly put him in dresses, skirts, and gowns years before that kind of gender-fluid presentation became more broadly normalized in mainstream hip-hop culture. His 2016 mixtape Jeffery, featuring the singles Pick Up the Phone and Wyclef Jean, doubled down on that persona, with its cover art built entirely around an elaborate, sculptural orange dress. It was, by design, confrontational, and it worked. Later that same year, he bought his first home, an 11,000-square-foot mansion in Buckhead complete with 11 bathrooms, a full bar, and a 4-car garage, a long way, both literally and financially, from the Jonesboro South projects. The next several years cemented his position as one of the most important figures shaping the sound of mainstream hip-hop, even when his own solo projects weren't always the biggest commercial hits of the moment. He appeared on Camila Cabello's #1 pop single Havana in 2017, giving him a genuine crossover pop hit. That same year brought Beautiful Thugger Girls, an unexpected pivot into country and pop-inflected songwriting that still somehow retained his trademark weirdness, along with collaborative projects with producer Carnage and with fellow Atlanta star Future, the mixtape Super Slimy. In 2018, he appeared on Childish Gambino's This Is America, a single that would go on to win the Grammy for Song of the Year, giving Young Thug his first Grammy win as a credited songwriter on one of the most culturally significant songs of the decade. By this point, Williams had also become a label executive in his own right, founding Young Stoner Life Records, YSL, signing and developing a roster of Atlanta artists including Ghana, Lil Keed, and Lil Duke. The label's Slime Language compilation series became a showcase for that growing roster, and in 2019 Young Thug notched his first #1 album on the Billboard 200 with So Much Fun. His 2021 album Punk also topped the chart, and Slime Language 2, released that same year, became one of his biggest commercial successes yet, further cementing YSL as one of the most commercially dominant collectives in Atlanta hip-hop. From the outside, by the spring of 2022, Young Thug appeared to be operating at the absolute peak of his career, a label boss, a Grammy winner, a fashion icon, and one of the most sampled, referenced, and imitated vocal stylists of his generation. Then, on May 9, 2022, it all stopped. Williams was arrested in Buckhead alongside 27 other people believed to be associated with YSL as part of a sweeping 56-count indictment brought by Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Using Georgia's racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization statute, the same type of law originally designed to dismantle organized crime syndicates, prosecutors alleged that Young Stoner Life wasn't just a record label. They claimed it was also the operating name for Young Slime Life, a violent street gang with ties to the National Bloods Gang network, one that prosecutors said had been responsible for nearly a decade's worth of murders, armed robberies, carjackings, and drug trafficking across the Atlanta area. Central to the state's case was the 2015 murder of a rival gang leader named Donovan Thomas, a killing prosecutors alleged had been ordered from within YSL's inner circle. What made the case unusual and drew intense scrutiny from legal experts and civil liberties advocates alike was the prosecution's heavy reliance on Young Thug's own lyrics as evidence, treating lines from his songs as literal, factual admissions of criminal conduct rather than artistic expression, a strategy that immediately drew comparisons to a small but growing number of similar cases across the country and sparked a broader national debate about whether rap lyrics should ever be admissible as courtroom evidence at all. The trial that followed became, almost immediately, one of the strangest and most closely watched criminal proceedings in recent American legal history. Jury selection alone took nearly 10 months, a Georgia state record on its own, before opening statements finally began on November 27, 2023. The proceedings were chaotic almost from the start. Young Thug's lead defense attorney, Brian Steele, was arrested on a contempt charge in open court during the trial, a charge that was later dropped. The presiding judge, Fulton County Chief Judge Ural Glanville, was ultimately removed from the case entirely after it emerged he had held a secret meeting with prosecutors and a cooperating witness that had excluded the defense team. A serious enough breach that the case was reassigned to a new judge, Paige Reese Whitaker, partway through. Along the way, several of Williams's co-defendants accepted plea deals of their own, each one chipping away at the size of the trial. Perhaps none drew more attention or more lasting controversy within hip-hop than the plea deal accepted by Sergio Kitchens, the rapper known as Ghana, one of Young Thug's closest collaborators and one of the flagship artists on his YSL label roster. In December 2022, Ghana accepted what's known as an Alford plea, a legal mechanism that allowed him to maintain his innocence while still formally accepting the legal consequences of a guilty plea, and was released after roughly 8 months in custody. As part of his plea, a statement was read into the court record on his behalf acknowledging that his music had, in his words, indirectly furthered the gang to the detriment of his community, and stating plainly that YSL as a gang must end. Ghana's release and the terms of his plea deal ignited a firestorm within hip-hop that has never fully died down. Accusations that he had snitched to secure his freedom spread rapidly across social media and within the industry itself, fueled further when court footage surfaced showing Ghana answering yes to a series of prosecution questions confirming, under the terms of his plea, that YSL had operated as a gang and that crimes had been committed under its banner. Ghana and his legal team pushed back hard and repeatedly, insisting he had never testified against anyone, never cooperated with investigators, and never provided information used against his co-defendants. The dispute has simmered, publicly, for years since, flaring up again and again through leaked jail phone calls, deleted tweets, and dueling statements from lawyers on both sides, souring what had once been one of the closest creative partnerships in Atlanta rap. The relationship, once inseparable, has never fully recovered. The main trial itself dragged on for nearly 2 full years, becoming, by every measure, the longest criminal trial in Georgia's history, surpassing even the sprawling Atlanta Public Schools cheating scandal trial of 2014 and 2015 for both jury selection length and total witness testimony. Then, in the final stretch of proceedings in October 2024, the case nearly collapsed entirely. A cooperating witness, testifying under a prior plea agreement, revealed information to the jury that was supposed to have been excluded, sending the trial to the brink of a mistrial. Rather than risk starting the entire 2-year process over from scratch, a rapid cascade of plea deals followed within days. Co-defendant Quamarvius Nichols pleaded guilty to a single racketeering count in exchange for a 20-year sentence, with murder charges against him dropped. 2 more co-defendants, Rodalius Ryan and a defendant known as Huey, struck their own deals within 24 hours, both receiving sentences that were largely converted to time already served. On October 31, 2024, Young Thug himself entered his plea, facing a state recommendation that had, in the final days of negotiation, ballooned to a 45-year sentence, 25 years in prison followed by 20 years of probation. Williams instead reached a non-negotiated agreement with the court. He pleaded no contest to racketeering conspiracy and to participating in a criminal street gang in a leadership role, and pleaded guilty to 3 separate drug charges and 2 gun charges. Judge Whitaker sentenced him to a total of 40 years, with only 5 years to be served, a term that, given credit for the roughly 2.5 years he had already spent in custody since his arrest, was effectively commuted to time served. He walked out of the Fulton County Jail a free man that same night, sentenced to 15 years of probation, with strict conditions that, notably, barred him from living within the city of Atlanta itself for the duration of that probationary period. There's a layer of irony sitting underneath all of it that hasn't gone unnoticed by hip-hop fans and commentators. In August 2025, an old 2-hour police interrogation video resurfaced online, appearing to show Young Thug himself, during his own custody, naming a fellow YSL affiliate to investigators, reigniting exactly the same snitching conversation that had followed Ghana for years, only now pointed back at Young Thug. It became fuel for a fresh round of hip-hop commentary about credibility, loyalty, and exactly how much of the public narrative around who cooperated with whom during the YSL case can ever be fully untangled from rumor. Since his release, Young Thug's return to music has been prolific, even by his own historically fast-paced standards. He released Business is Business in June 2023 while the trial was still ongoing, followed by a rapid 1-2 punch of Slime Season and Slime Season 2 in 2024 immediately after his release, and then YSL in September 2025, a sprawling 20-track album featuring an enormous guest list that included Travis Scott, 21 Savage, Lil Baby, Cardi B, Future, T.I., Quavo, and Sexy Red, debuting at number 6 on the Billboard 200. Throughout 2026, he's continued building out YSL's next generation of signees, releasing collaborative material with newer artists on the label and, that summer, launching the YSL New Generation tour alongside collaborator NAV. Spotlighting the up-and-coming roster he's continued to develop even in the aftermath of the case that nearly ended his career entirely. Through all of it, the mixtapes, the Grammy, the gender-bending fashion statements that predated a broader cultural shift by years, the label empire, and the 2.5 years spent at the center of the longest criminal trial in Georgia history, Young Thug's story resists a tidy, single-sentence summary in a way that few artists of his era can match. He is, depending entirely on who's describing him and when, a genre-redefining innovator whose vocal style reshaped the sound of an entire decade of hip-hop. A Grammy-winning songwriter who helped write one of the most culturally significant songs of his generation. A label boss who built a real business and a real roster of talent out of nothing. And a man who spent years fighting a state prosecution that treated his own song lyrics as courtroom evidence of murder and racketeering before walking free on a plea that ended his case without ever definitively settling, in the eyes of the public, exactly where the truth actually sat. What's not in dispute is the scale of the mark he's already left. A kid from the Jonesboro South projects who was expelled from school in the 6th grade for breaking a teacher's arm went on to change the way an entire generation of rappers approaches melody and rhythm, got a rival gang's murder investigation built partly around the words in his songs, survived it, and came out the other side still running the label, still dropping albums nearly every year, and still, by his own account, building toward whatever comes next. If you enjoyed this content, please share and subscribe.